Sam, would you like to start recording, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Right. Just to let you know that I'll be chairing today in the absence of Councillor Peter Black, who's obviously away with his parents. So what I'd like to do first is go through the apologies. We've had apologies obviously from Councillor Black, Mary Jones and Beth Allender, the corporate members. Like to do then obviously to do the for those who have joined online, what we're going to do now is go around the room to introduce who everybody who's in the room here, so you know. So if I start from my right.
Hello, I'm Adrian Jeremiah. I'm a solicitor employed by the authority.
Good afternoon. My name is Samantha Jenkins. I'm Democratic Services Officer.
Jack House, Director of Social Services.
I'm Howard Metcalf, Transformation Programme Manager.
Hi, Julia Jenkins, Native Ottawa County Borough Council, Substance Misuse Lead for the APB.
Hi all, Jane Whitmore, Commissioner in Resources, Social Services, but also the co-chair of the Community Safety Safer Swansea Partnership.
Hello, I'm Lee Wenham. I'm the Council's Head of Communications, Corporate Planning and Performance.
Hi everyone, my name is Hayley Gwilym, Councillor and Cabinet Member for Community Support.
Hi, Councillor Alison Anthony, Cabinet Member for Wellbeing, where substance use and vulnerable groups sits with me.
Thank you. Councillor Peter May, Councillor for the Uplands Ward.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Bridge Madderhalf from the Council's Scrutiny team, providing support to the committee.
Item now we've got is then disclosure of the person addressed. Any members? No.
Me, Chair, please. I have checked with Lucy, and because I sat on the Drugs Commission itself, she said to declare a personal interest only.
Right, okay.
Sue
Jones.
Sue Jones.
Sue Jones.
My son works for South Wales Police.
Thank you. Another Wendy Lewis. Councillor Wendy Lewis.
My son works for South Wales Police.
Okay. Yes, thanks.
Matthew Jones.
Matthew Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. My brother's employed by South Wales Police.
Right, thank you. Forms will be sent out for you to fill in, please, and return in declarations of interest forms. Thank you. Right, item 3 is for the prohibition of web votes and declared party webs. Nobody? Right, okay, thank you. Right, then we move on to the item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, to prove as a track, to remove as a track correct record. And somebody to move minutes of a present last meeting?
I move, Mike.
Right, second. Yes. All great. Thank you very much indeed. Public questions, Bridge, have you had any? No public questions. Thank you very much. So if you can move then on to agenda item 6, which is the report for the Western Bay Drugs Commission report. As you know, if obviously members have had a chance to read this report, an excellent report, in-depth report, a lot of areas there where things could obviously be looking at to perhaps work with other partners to perhaps improve things, but really, really comprehensive report. And you know, it's an absolute credit to those people that worked on that report and putting it together. It took a lot of time, a lot of hard work. And there's a lot of information there which we obviously need to look at into today. So without further notice, can I ask Councillor Alison Anthony to present the report?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'm here today, and I was, as I just mentioned, I actually was part of the Drugs Commission. The conversations first started back as far as 2019 when Swansea had a significant amount of deaths, unfortunate deaths, to substance use, and questions were being asked, rightly so, by local authority, by health board, by everybody, of what's gone wrong, what's happening out there, what can we do, how do we really get to the root cause of things. It took a while for the commission to sort of get going, and the APB then authorised the commission. Like I said, it ran over then a year ago to COVID was in the midst of it and everything as well. So, it's taking a time. But what was good about the commission was it was really working with people that used, and families as well, importantly, that the families that are affected as well. We worked with all the services across Western Bay. You have to build relationships up. It's not easy for people to just open up. But, the report is a thorough report. Lots of people were very open that it's the mixing of drugs in the community, the prescribed drugs that people can get their hands on that are actually then, usually involved with the deaths or the serious overdoses and everything. So it was huge out there, and it was important for us to look at the services, of how our services were working with people, and not running to suit us. Right, there is a need that if you're in if you've got lots going on in your life, and your life is in chaos and everything, you're not going to be able to turn up at 8:30 in the morning for a booked appointment. All those sort of realistic things that needed to be addressed, needed to be asked. You'll see in the report, and I'm sure Dave and everybody will talk about we've already started making progress from, even though it was launched 2 weeks ago, since the report was written last year, services have started to alter and work in a co-productive way, and starting to think about that, perhaps that softer approach, that more immediate approach, all the things that really we need to do, because we need to continue now to listen to people, and to be able to help. So it is huge, you're right, and lots of agencies involved, but I think it's an absolute brilliant thing that we've done, and we're going to be addressing it, and we've got some really good ideas now as well, going forward, where everybody wants to work together. So I just like to thank everybody that was involved, officer-wise and everything as well, to be able to put this together, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Anthony. What we were planning to do, Chair, just acknowledge first and all, we've got the Police Force Lead has joined us on line, Superintendent Kavanagh. We've also got Lisa Shipton from the Police and Crime Commissioner, and we've got colleagues from, as already introduced themselves, from the Area Planning Board, Angharad and Julia. And what we're intending to do was Angharad will summarise for the committee the main findings from the report, and then Julia's going to share with the committee the things that are in train already and planned next steps in response to the report. And then between all of us, we'll answer any further questions that the committee has, if that's okay. That's great. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to Angharad first of all.
Thank you for the kind welcome. So firstly, I'd just like to summarise, really. It's a very lengthy and detailed report, but I think just to pull out some of the key things. So there's some good and there's really some core areas of learning for us. So I'd just like to go through those. So some of the positives. So the report notes that local leaders, staff and communities are eager for real change. The transformation programme and the Drugs Commission are viewed as important steps forward towards a more effective strategy. Valuing lived and living experience. The Commission highlights the need to involve people with lived experience of drug use in shaping services. The report notes initial progress, including appointing a participation and engagement officer and engaging individuals in consultations and workshops. The phrase "include us when it's for us" reflects increasing support for co-production and meaningful inclusion. Dedicated and passionate workforce. The report highlights the dedication, passion and commitment of staff working in drug treatment and support services. Despite some of the systemic challenges that they're experiencing, many staff members are described as hardworking, compassionate and eager to see improvements in outcomes for people affected by drug use. There are some examples of good practice and innovation, and these include some of the effective interagency collaboration, the development of recovery communities, and the willingness of some GPs and pharmacies to engage in shared care models. The work of the Commission has received significant political interest and support from the outset, which is seen as a positive foundation for driving forward the ambitious recommendations and ensuring accountability. There is also growing recognition of the need for cultural change at all levels, so leadership, service delivery and community engagement. The report notes that the groundwork has been laid for this shift, and there are already green shoots of change visible in the system. So for Swansea Council, Swansea Council has played a very positive role in the Commission. It's played a key role in establishing and supporting the Drug Commission, demonstrating that political commitment in addressing the drug-related deaths. And obviously we have Swansea Council directly represented on the Commission, so I think that is absolutely appreciated. So some of the other key findings. We have to recognise that there are gaps in service provision. We recognise that drug use is often a response to very difficult life circumstances, and there have been experiences for people where they face many barriers in accessing the services they need. That the system that is in place is slow to adapt and is overly focused on historical practices. So we really need our services to be innovative and responding to any emerging needs. And that is something that is fundamental to our work going forward. We also need to ensure that people in rural areas and those with co-occurring needs, mental health and substance use, neurodiversity, we need to ensure that services are responsive to those specific needs. We need to ensure that there is primary care and shared care models. There is a lack of integration between substance use services and primary care. The Commission recommends enhancing the role of GP practices and community pharmacies in providing treatment. So that will be a fundamental action for us going forward. It does note there are data limitations and ongoing challenges with data collection and sharing, which can often hamper monitoring and evaluation of interventions. So we need to ensure that we effectively measure the outcomes for people with our services, that meaningful outcomes are being delivered for people. Lack of open door and open access. So the report finds that for adult needing help, they're often faced with locked doors, buzzer entry systems or glass partitions. We need to make sure those barriers to access and support are removed. We also note there's a persistent influence of organised crime, and that remains a threat to our communities. So our policing colleagues are working with us collaboratively to ensure that we address that. The report also highlights the social and economic inequalities continue to drive drug use, with many deprived communities experiencing these negative outcomes. So that's something we must consider. The report also criticised the slow pace of legislative reform, which can really impede the implementation of progressive approaches to drug policy. So some key findings that impact Swansea specifically. Housing insecurity and homelessness. It's really important that we tie into housing and we ensure that, for example, the experience of people is that crisis responses, particularly regarding drug harms, are often delivered through third sector housing and homelessness services, many of which fall outside of the Area Planning Board's direct funding or governance, yet remain vital in Swansea in supporting this approach. Service provision and accessibility. So services are predominantly concentrated in city centres, and that's the same for Neath Tarbert and Swansea. And this centralisation means individuals from outlying areas, such as the valleys or the Gower, must travel considerable distances and often at a personal cost to access support and treatment. So the Commission calls for more accessible, open-door approaches to services across the region, with specific reference then to Swansea, for us to think about Swansea in that respect. So some strategic recommendations, leadership and accountability. So Swansea Council, alongside all the other statutory partners of the APB, are asked to take a clear and visible responsibility for tackling drug-related harms. And the report recommends establishing a dynamic, cohesive plan underpinned by strong civic and political leadership and creating that whole system approach. Cultural change and inclusivity. So for all Commission services, we should develop a plan for a year of inclusivity. So again, that's something that we'll be working on going forward. So I'm going to stop there. As I said, I've tried to shorten it down into a brief summary of a very detailed report. And I think it would be useful if members were to hear maybe some of the plans that we're already developing to address those recommendations. In terms of our approach and next steps, we looked to the Commission and to the organisers of the Commission, the facilitators, and we asked them, how should we do this? How do we respond to your recommendations? And they were very clear with us that it should be co-produced, that it should be embedded in the understanding of people with lived and living experience, in staff working in services, and it should be engaged with leaders. And therefore, we are taking our we've developed our partnership day as a starter on the 30th September, where the report was launched. And we will be consulting with partners as we develop our plan going forward. But I'll hand over to Julia now to take us through some of those next steps.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Angharad. So yeah, just to start, and as Councillor Anthony outlined in her introduction, some time has passed since the beginning of this commission. It was 3 years ago, really, and I think we are looking at quite a different landscape now as we were to when we were back then. And it does capture a moment in time. And we didn't stand still while the report was being written. We were fortunate enough to be able to link in with the Commission members to ask advice on certain things, and they told us certain things that we needed to address in the here and now. So we have been doing a lot of work since then, and now the report is finalised. We are going to develop a strategy and action plan to take forward those recommendations. Now, it's important to understand that the strategy and action plan isn't just a response to the recommendations. It is an overarching strategy about how we want to take things forward. The delivery plan will encompass all of the recommendations and how we're going to implement them. So that's a starting point. We have had our partnership day, as Angharad outlined, and we had a draft strategy sent out before the partnership day to a wide variety of stakeholders to ask for feedback. We also had feedback on that partnership day on that draft strategy, and we are now using that information to revise and refine the strategy and come up with a delivery plan that we will all be measurable. It will all be measurable by everybody, and we can all check back and monitor it. Things in that plan will reflect all of the work that we did whilst the report was being written. So we ran a series of pilot projects around rapid access prescribing. We had some funding to run a project that addresses complex needs around housing and mental health and substance use. We also changed the way we access services via a new front door. So we widened access there as well. And we had agreement from the APB to fund some new staff on the APB team. So we've got a data analyst that's greatly helped with understanding what data we've got out there, not only from within substance use services, but in the wider picture, so we can overlay information and learn about demand and what we need to do. And we also have a harm reduction lead who looks at everything to do with interventions around reducing risk. And we have a case review coordinator who looks at drug-related deaths and reviews those and carries out audits to learn from best practice and lessons learned. So we have done a lot of work, but there is still work to do. So as part of that as well, when we embarked on this transformation programme, one of the main aspects of it was to learn from the Commission, but also to change our services. And we're doing that via a commissioning of an alliance. So we're all the key partners are entering into an alliance to commission together, so not in silos. So criminal justice are involved. We've got the councils involved, and and also the health board. So we are commissioning together a fully integrated model, and lots of the recommendations in the report are around services and what they need to do and how they could be better. So we feel that the model we have put forward should cover off most of those service related recommendations. So we're well on the way to achieving that. We've got an end date of our current services at the end of March and the new one to start at the beginning of April next year. We're on track to do that. It has been easy, but it's been a challenge, but we're getting there. So, thankfully, with the support of everybody involved, we've been able to do that. I think an important part is revising the strategy. So we've got a draft that we will be doing, revising and getting it out in Q4, a final version for everybody to feedback and agree. We'll also then begin preparations to have regular check-ins with committees such as yourselves, with our regional partnership board, with the community safety partners, and our providers also. So there are plans to make sure that everybody is accountable. I think going forward, we will need to prioritise because there's quite a lot of recommendations. So we won't be achieving everything all at once. So we'll need to do a prioritisation exercise, and we'll need to make sure that our governance around the partnership, the APB, the CSB and the RPB, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. So we've been working really hard on that over the last 18 months too. And with the alliance does come some legal obligations because we are commissioning together, and that just makes our partnership working more robust. So that's where we're going. And just to finalise that, I think the key to a successful strategy and working together. And it isn't the easiest thing to do. Everybody has an agenda, but we've come together as an APB, and we have already fostered those relationships. So we'll be building on that. And working together does include people with lived and living experience. That has been at the root of everything we've done. As part of our alliance and commissioning, people with lived experience have been represented on the panel for the commission exercise. They fed back as to what they feel is needed in the service. So we have been listening to them. So I think we do have some things that will be urgent. And I think for Swansea and for Neath Talbot, similar really. And we need to think about finalising that alliance and getting everything sorted through the new model. We need to enhance our service user involvement, and we need to tackle inequalities to treatment. And those are key areas we should be concentrating on. I think, we need to talk about how we monitor all of this. It's a massive plan. We will have outcomes that are deliverable, and we will hold people to account. And we'll do that by our annual partnership day. We'll do that by our regular monitoring of services, and we will do that by feeding back. We will be developing a communications plan as part of all this. So we will make sure everybody who needs to be updated is, and everybody who needs to be involved is. So I think really that's the journey we've been on. We've got a long way to go, but we are committed, as are all of the leaders of all of the partners, because on the partnership day, they did all pledge their commitment to take this forward. So I think we're in a good starting point there.
Yes, Stuart, thanks for that. I'm read the report as well, obviously, with the 24 recommendations, plus the 2 to the Welsh Government as well. There's a lot of work, and a lot of work has gone into this, which has been done by the team. It's excellent, really in depth. Before I first go into our questions, and then, did any of our police representatives want to make any sort of comments before we move to questioning?
Lisa Shipton.
Lisa, or?
Hello, thank you. So I'm Lisa Shipton. I'm from the South Wales Police and Crime Commissioner's Office. My colleague, Superintendent Mark Kavanagh, has just had to leave, unfortunately. He's asked me to give his apologies. He's had to attend a meeting at one of the local mosques. Welcome questions. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this today. I'm very much looking forward to working with all partners as we take this important work forward. That's it. Thank you.
very much. Well, then, if you like to go into questions now, then. So the first question is for me, and it's on the strategic leadership and accountability. Immediate steps next. What are the immediate next steps for the council and its partners now that the report has been published? Anyone wants to take that one?
So as you said, we've started with our Partnership Development Day, which was really fundamental in terms of the leaders taking, understanding the report, its findings, and committing to working collaboratively to address the recommendations. The Commission calls for a major cultural shift led by strong public leadership. So that's absolutely key here. And it absolutely involves joined up approaches across the statutory services. We all need to contribute to the plan together and ensure that strategies within our organisations are aligning. The Area Planning Board has strengthened leadership over the last year. We established a transformation programme board, which has supported the review of APB governance, decision making and transparency. Leadership contributions have been renewed across all the partners. This again was confirmed at the APB Partnership Day. And the alliance procurement model also promotes that distributed leadership and mutual accountability. So really fundamentally, we need the support of the leaders. We need to ensure that all of the strategies and activities going on across the leadership support our approaches and support in removing barriers. And also in terms of holding Welsh Government, to account in supporting us in what we need going forward.
Thank you. Right. My second question is prioritisation and governance. How will Commission's recommendations be prioritised, and what governance arrangements will be put in place to monitor progress?
So in terms of the prioritisation that Julia mentioned, that will be done over the next quarter. So I think we will be working together to ensure that our strategic objectives are agreed across the leadership and are based on what we have all agreed as a partnership should be the foundation for the Area Planning Board to focus on. Those will also be informed by the recommendations of the Drug Commission report. So we've already started to refine what those objectives should look like. But fundamentally, how will we measure? We will set actions and we will ensure that there is an accountable person responsible for those actions. In terms of services and how we commission services, we will be developing an outcomes framework with those new commission services. There will be KPIs that we will be monitoring the services against each quarter as part of our contract monitoring. But really importantly is we want to ensure that those services deliver outcomes. I think we're all used to measuring numbers of people in services. They come in, they come out. What we are really keen to do is be innovative and to think about how those services are delivering outcomes for people that people have said are important to them. So we've already started that process of developing outcomes that are important to people accessing services, and we're going to continue to monitor ourselves against those and be held to account. In terms of the governance arrangements, the APB will have a contract with the providers as commissioners, but also the accountability process goes through the community safety partnerships. So we report to community safety partnerships. We also report to public services boards. So we will have that layer of governance, and also we'll come to scrutiny and update you on what we're doing. I think it's also really important that we share with the public what we're doing. So we've developed an APB website where all of our information, projects, our performance, etc., will be on the website for people to access.
Oh, that's great. I got one last question, which is what I've already touched on. Regards to responsibility, who will be responsible for leading and coordinating the response to the report?
So we have an APB support team. So the APB support team is managed by Julia, and I'm the transformation program manager. So Julia and I will work collaboratively to ensure that we lead on developing the strategy and the delivery plan. But of course, as part of the report, it's really important that it's owned by everyone. So it has to be owned by leaders, by people using services, by us people working in services. So that's why it's really important that whilst Julia and I will be sort of organising and driving and ensuring that we deliver, it actually has to be developed and co-produced and owned by everyone that's in it. So I think that's probably how I would describe it.
Yeah, that's great. Just coming back on the KPIs, how often are you going to monitor that? Is it going to be monthly or weekly or?
So yeah, so we review. So we've actually, the way we are doing it at the moment is we have live dashboards. So we're able to access live information on a daily basis and run reports regularly. In terms of, so we'd be reviewing that on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, but formally it's usually quarterly reporting. However, as with any contract you'd be monitoring, if we were concerned, we would probably increase the level of reporting. If we're content that services are functioning, at a good level and we weren't seeing any concerning behaviour, then it would be a minimum of quarterly usually. But that would be agreed within the partnership and be overseen by the APB.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Right, can we move on and then to the next question, which is about partnership working. Can I call in Councillor Sue Jones, please?
Yeah, does Martin want to say something first, Chair? Martin Nichols?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I was just going to add a point, if I may, Chair. Sorry, I just put my hand on. I was going to add a point on the response to the previous question. I just thought it was appropriate, given that, I'm sure councillors in the room would be particularly interested in what, as a council, we're doing. And I just wanted to echo, really, the support from the comments of Anne Harrod around us being able to demonstrate that collective civic leadership. It was important in the Partnership Day that we all signed up to that, both politically and as officers, and really it's just about making sure that we can evidence that commitment on behalf of the council and personal responsibility for that to me as chief executive, whether that be through the APB or the PSB arrangements, but also through our day-to-day engagement through community safety, and really ultimately making sure, and I guess a role for myself in this, that as a council we demonstrate that we collectively not just sign up to this, but deliver against the commitments that are being made and coordinate our activities throughout the council to be able to underpin that co-productive nature of service delivery. So I just wanted to echo the support for that, Chair, just to really state on the record how fully supportive we are as a leadership team in terms of the outcome of the report and the recommendations and the role that we as a council have to play in that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Nichols. Councillor Jones, you come in your question now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was particularly on collaboration. You spoke an awful lot on the communication that you've got between the different services. And I just wondered if you can give us any examples of what you're doing now, particularly in regard to the findings of the report.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were really lucky to be able to have a participation and engagement officer, and that really was the beginning for us in developing what is now known as a Lived Experience Alliance Forum. So that's it started off as bringing people with lived experience together and really giving them a voice. So our participation and engagement officer has been key in developing those relationships with people who have experienced all of the services across our area, to tell us about their experiences. And as part of developing our future transformation of services, they have been working collaboratively with us as an area planning board to inform everything that we do and what the new services should look like. And they've been absolutely key, really, to everything that we do. So we've been really lucky in that we've now got, as I say, a self-proclaimed Lived Experience Alliance Forum. So they've taken ownership, really, and are really keen to continue to work with us as, to inform us and keep us in line with what we should be doing for people in Western Bay. And we want to see that grow and continue. I think that's really important. And I think there's an opportunity actually to build a peer community network that just continues to hold us to account for what we're delivering. So an example would be that we've had several workshops where we've had people with lived experience, people who work in services across mental health, housing, policing, all come together, and people delivering substance use services, to come together to look at how the services have operated now, and actually what do we want our future model, what would an innovative new model look like for Swansea and Neath Talbot. And we've developed a specification for our new service model based on all of that information, on months of engagement and work with people with lived experience to inform that. So it's really exciting that we are, our specification, our future is based on all of that information. But also we've got people with lived experience on our commissioning panel. So they will be scoring the responses of the service providers to our commissioning. So we're absolutely ensuring that this is, co-production. People with lived experience are at the heart of what we do. And we didn't have that in place at the time of the commission report. So I think they talked about sort of early shoots of signs of things. And I think now we really move forward, and we want to continue to grow that in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just a few things to add as well. Something so basic as when we were looking at how the APB functions in its meetings and what they look like and what the role is, we introduced a why we do what we do section to the agenda. So at the beginning of every meeting, we hear from people with lived experience, the good and the bad and the ugly, about, what it's like to be involved with substance use, what it's like to access services. So we feel that, that's a good start to the meeting as it grounds people's thoughts for the rest of the agenda. And also we have had the chair of the LEAF, the Lived Experience Alliance Forum, attending the APB. So that's a step forward. We've been wanting to do that for so long, but we didn't really have the impetus behind it. And we've got a group of people who are really, really excited and involved, and really, really help us to shape our thoughts really as a board. So yeah, just something as simple as that really has made a massive difference.
Thank you both so much. Very exciting.
Councillor Peter May.
Thank you very much. Following on from the partnership working, they're very, very laudable. Every organisation I know, including this one, always said they're going to move away as a cultural shift from silo working and everything, and we're going to collaborate more. You've got obviously a project where you've got many players involved here. Now, first sort of inquiry I'd like to make is, it's everybody has meetings where they tick boxes off, where they set agendas, where they say they're doing things, but outside the meetings are normally where the important work is done. It's that day-to-day organic collaboration, because I'm sure we've all been bored by flip charts and endless PowerPoints and being talked at. Where it's outside is where the difference is being made. You talk about deeper diving of the data early on in the report. Now, I'm a bit of a data geek. I love data. But data is useless if there's somebody just hoarding the data. The data has to be shared and put to use. And I'm sure that other organisations have got that. Or have you got something called they used to have it in the police force. I've been watching Dixon and Doc Green recently for all my sins, and you're a very good actor, Jack Warner, but he became what was called a collator in 1976. Now I thought, oh, that's a good role, isn't it? Because it's somebody that actually brings it all together and could possibly see, not just in meetings, but on an organic sort of day-to-day work, this piece of data could apply there. I want to bring these two organisations out of the pool of 6 together to discuss that. Are there any sort of actions where there's that happening, or do you think it's a good idea if it's not?
Yeah. So it's a good question, and a really interesting area to think about, because data does underpin everything we do, and we should be on top of understanding what is going on out there, what the demands are, and you know what is presenting to us every day in service. So as Angharad mentioned, we do have a data analyst now in the team, and they're not only a data geek, as you might have said yourself, but they're excellent at understanding what data means and looking deeper into, so there's X many people coming in, X many people finishing services, X many deaths, you know, all of that, looking at the whole picture. And I think they have been a massive asset to the work we've got. We've got dashboards where I now do not have to say, can you give me a report? And I just go like that, and it's there, and I can, all the information's there at my fingertips. And we've also had the beginnings of meetings in relation in Neath Talbot around social services and understanding the links between substance use data and safeguarding, children's services data, family data, police data. So, you know, it is there. We've got someone dedicated to doing that. And I could give you an example of where collaboration works in that. So we've got our case review coordinator who has direct access to the police niche system. So she's been vetted. So anything that comes up on there in intelligence, she can react to and we work as a partnership on that. So, and again, our harm reduction lead is daily working with the police and looking at intel coming in and looking at how we can reduce risks for people out there depending on the nature of what's coming in through the police system. So those links are there, and I think we are, if you speak to Welsh Government, all of the APBs collectively, we are the only APB area that has a formalised information sharing protocol around non-fatals, people who've had near misses, and a 72-hour protocol about getting services around them and welfare checks. So we are working collaboratively, and we've got some good examples of that. But I don't think that was actually picked up in the report, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, every opportunity I get, I talk about our best practice. So.
Yeah, just to really just to support what Julia and Harrod saying is that in terms of an example of how we all worked, we are all from different agencies. I'm from Swansea Council, but when I think colleagues are around the room and on the screen, Lisa and Mark who's left us, we all actually do work together and talk about it, things about actually what can we do better together. It is hard because we all have different, you know, there's sometimes we compete and with the agendas, but over the last couple of years, I mean, I've been a member of one of the subgroups of the APB for, how long? I don't know. Anyway, quite a long time. But this is probably the best that we've ever been in terms of building those relationships and trust between us as leaders in our own right, in our own organisations, about actually how we work together and drive that forward. And the example that Julia gave around the dashboard, when we have our subgroup meeting and we talk about data, instead of us going, well, what does that mean? You can actually, you know, have to drill down into it and go, oh, I can see what that does. And that's really helping us shape our thinking about, well, actually, why is that happening? How we can do it differently. And the lived experience is absolutely incredible, because it's almost like changed the way we need to think about how we design and deliver services together, because actually that's what's right for people and that's what matters to people rather than what we think. And that really has been the key. You know, I'm super proud to be on an alliance commissioning model where we're actually going to be scoring a tender, and we've actually got people with lived experience who's alongside us going, no, Jane, I think you're wrong. Actually, this would be a much better approach. And absolutely, this is definitely the right thing to do as we move forward. So this is an example from a colleague who we've worked together very closely in terms of actually making sure we are taking that partnership, collaborative approach. We haven't all fallen out yet.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, can we move on then to our next question on local priorities? Call Councillor Adam Davis, please.
Firstly, just a quick apologies for being slightly late to the meeting. Thank you for the report as well. There's a lot of detail in it. I just wanted to ask, of all of the report's findings, which ones do you think are the most urgent for Swansea?
And we've already referenced where the council really can make, I think, a unique contribution. So both councils, when there's descriptions in the report about that you need to join up your work around addressing homelessness. You know, the housing challenges going forward. What are we doing about inequality, tackling poverty agenda, etc. So there's some of those underpinning stuff are the things that I think uniquely the councils are well placed to lead on. Again, we can't address those challenges on our own. All still needs to be in partnership. But I think there's some of the particular expertise and impetus we can bring to things going forward. But if I was to pick out the most urgent challenge and change, it's not one particularly that the council can do, but it's really crucial to the success of driving forward the recommendations, particularly about making sure we have proportionate, speedy access to treatment services when people need them. So sort of right there at the right time. It's that one about we've got to do something about the balance of primary care involvement. So it's not something that the council can do, apart from being part of the partnership where that's a significant part of the plan. But if we're going to do something that's going to make most important difference to our population early stages, it's around developing that shared care model and that primary care involvement underpinning. If it was any of us, our first recourse to access to healthcare services for us would be to go to your doctor. Whereas if you've got substance use issues, that's not a sufficient option for you currently in our region and therefore in Swansea. And over, you know, as quickly as possible, that needs to be the first port of recourse for all of us if we're seriously going to transfer the model, you know, going forward. That's the bit that I'd say, Councillor.
Thank you.
So can I come? Thanks, Dave. I totally agree. And I think what Dave has just explained will help to improve geographical inequalities as well. So we spoke about, you know, outlying areas, the Gower, the valleys. I think, you know, if you've got access to a GP who is able to help you for your substance use needs, you may not need to go into a building in town. You know, so I think that is key to all of this. And we did actually have a review of services back in 2017 before we embarked on this. And that was the main recommendation coming from that report too. So, you know, that it is grounded in good evidence and we know it works. It works in other regions. So that is definitely a priority in this project. And we're working with our health board to make that happen. Yeah.
Thank you, Julia. Adam, yeah. Right, can we move to the next question then, please, which is on use of public engagement. They call on Councillor Victoria Holland, please.
Yes,
Rick?
I'm here online. Thank you so much for the report. We talked a lot about lived experience, and my question is, how will the input of the people with lived experience, families and communities shape what happens next?
Yeah, so I think it has to be completely embedded into what we do. So I suppose I've spoken quite a lot about lived and living experience, and absolutely communities, families. You know, we're going to have to do a lot of work to think about how we can really start from what we've got, which is our lived experience forum, and really build that into a really consultative approach across our area. So it will absolutely be at the heart of our plans going forward. And I think it's often a challenge to build up that type of response. But I think ideally we'd like to be held to account for our service delivery by people who are accessing our services, their families and communities. So we want to have a reciprocal, consistent relationship where we are fed really by that, by their view on what we're doing well and what we're not doing well.
Thank you.
Go on, Julia.
Yeah, and I think in the partnership day we had a roundtable discussion on exactly this topic, and on our table, I know Jane was on our table. We spoke about all of the work about co-production involving people who lived and living experience that happens outside of substance use. Yeah. So, you know, substance use treatment is niche. The effect substance has on the community isn't, and you know, we probably all know someone who's been touched by it or you know, a community that is. So it's important to tap into existing ways that we engage with people, not just keep it just to a substance use, but wider than that, to understand the wider impact. So I think that was a really interesting point that we need to work on going forward too.
Just if you want to come back then.
Julia's just said exactly what I was going to say. So we did have that conversation on the table of the partnership day, but as I say, it is much, much wider. So it's about us taking a more proactive and understanding approach about all our different community engagement that goes. So from a council's perspective, we engage with our community on lots of different levels and different touch points, but really, how do we capture that? How do we really understand what's going on, and how do we then make sure that we're feeding it into the right place to make a difference? It's not just it is much broader than just, it's not, oh, we need to do this over here for substance use. It's actually a whole system approach, isn't it? It's actually, what is those what's it telling us? What can we do together? It's also just to touch upon those third sector services. So Hannah's spoken it right at the very beginning, that those third sector services play a crucial part. I know Alison and myself, we link in with our third sector compact, and what they are doing is how we harness that and understand what the intelligence and that engagement is there, and how do we actually work it together. So really bringing all of those things together to really understand what that difference that can make.
Thank you. Alison?
Just to follow on what Jane is saying, you know, we are both heavily involved in working with the third sector, and you know, we are at a stage now where we're really excited that our Devati shops will be opening soon. The shops of the buildings we took over, you know, and that really is in the heart of the community in a vulnerable area, and it will be hugely cross workforces, third sector, health, council, so that, like Dave said, you're in the right place at the right time to catch people. And on the day in the Liberty, we were there, the table I was on, we were talking very much about families, and families are often not in the same place as the person actually using the drugs. You know, they may not be ready, but the family are at their wit's end, you know. So we were very much talking about having harm reduction sort of cafes for families, as well as, you know, separate to people that are using, you know, to come in. And the same with for other vulnerable people that are in the area working and everything. So we very much want to include families in this net, because they will need to support people, you know. So yeah, we're getting there.
Thank you, Alison.
Thanks.
And just to add briefly, I think that's absolutely why it's so important that we're sharing our ideas in this way, so that we don't just respond and say, oh yes, we're going to just, this is how we're going to do it, because there were so many ideas in the partnership day, and I'm a bit of a data geek as well, so I like the you know, the sort of quantitative, but being able to understand the qualitative feedback and to get it across a partnership, so we truly understand what's happening in our communities. Because as I say, we can't just have our lived experience forum and rely on them to be reflecting everything that's happening in our communities. So there were some really, really good ideas that were coming out, and I think that's the work we need to do over the next few months, is to bring it together and be ambitious about how we can overlay and understand what's happening more, you know, in more detail and more depth than just a very quick and easy response.
Move on to the next question, then, please. Respect for myself. Defining success. What will success look like in a year's time? How will people notice things have improved? What, Julia?
Yeah, so I think really you'll be wanting to see more people in service, won't you? You'll be wanting to see more people who are completing treatment or becoming drug-free, or experiencing less risk. So those are the things we'll be monitoring and measuring. You know, we would all love to see a reduction in drug-related deaths and harms. You know, we've had official ONS figures from last year, and they have decreased. So, you know, we are on a downward trajectory. Let's hope we can keep that up. We are no longer, as a region, at the top of the charts for that. So that's really impressive. And all of the little collective things we've been doing have ended up in that ranking, really. We want to see more, I think, service integration. So even though we're commissioning together, we'll want to see integration with other linked services, and I think that will come as a part and parcel of the work we're doing. And we want to have positive feedback from people who are using the service. We want them to say it was great, it was easy, I got seen within 2 days, and I'm doing the best I've ever done. You know, we'll monitor all of that, we'll capture all of that, and we want to see, you know, positive data coming out of our monitoring of the services, so we can see a change in that. And also, I think eventually we will see communities that with less visible substance use issues. You know, if people are in recovery, they're not going to be doing the things that they're forced to do now. So I think those are the kinds of things we will hope to see. You know, it's going to be a long journey. We're not going to launch the service on day one and then all of a sudden everybody is recovered. You know, it's a long journey, and people lapse and relapse. So it's going to be, you know, a long journey, but we want to make sure our doors are always open. So if you do relapse, you can come straight back in. You don't have to wait for another 10 weeks. You know, we will provide that aftercare and support for people and see positive outcomes in that way, really.
Thank you very much. Can I then move on to, more or less, I've given us quite a grilling here, the data and the evidence, what's been said, but are we using the best information data to track what's working and what isn't?
Yeah, I can say
What can you say, how long is a piece of string?
Yeah, I think we're in a better position than we were. So we do have all of these dashboards that we've mentioned. They have made a massive difference in us having information at our fingertips. You know, we struggle with a case management system, really. You know, we have been using WICUS, which is prescribed by Welsh Government as a system. That's changing. You know, we need to carry on having integrated systems, so the health board can see what the third sector's doing if they're sharing case management of a client. So, you know, things are better. We will be developing an outcomes framework that is more meaningful than rather just counting beans or sausages in a sausage factory, as a colleague of mine used to say, because, you know, we're not in that business. So we need to make sure that we're recording and collecting the right things, so we can actually see if we're making a difference. So it's better than we were, but a long way to go. But we've got the tools to be able to do that now. So.
Excellent. And the last question from me, which is regarding on barriers. What do you see as the main barriers to delivering real changes for people affected by drug use? Do you want to take that one?
I don't mind. I've got some personal views, but I'm sure Howard and everybody else. But to me, I think we're always facing an ever-changing landscape. So changing drug trends, we have to respond, services have to respond. You know, people, changes in drug use. You know, we've got ketamine as a particular issue with the young people, you know, using different drugs, and we need to be on the ball and be able to be responsive to changing treatment needs. So, and it's really, really hard to keep up, but, you know, hopefully in the way we'll be working in partnership, we can all feed off each other and get a coordinated response. You know, as well as that, money is always an issue, isn't it? That, you know, that is a barrier. We don't have a never-ending pot of money. We have a funding envelope. It's substantial enough to commission what we need to, but, you know, we will face challenges because we don't know what's around the corner. You know, we're looking to have a 10-year contract. In that time, funding may change from Welsh Government, so we're going to have to respond accordingly as a partnership to those challenges. And I think currently our main challenge is a fragmented service at present. You know, you've got lots of different organisations doing lots of different things. It's hard to manage, hard for people to manoeuvre, but we're moving away from that now. Yeah, and I think before a challenge was working in partnership, not so much so now. Over the last 18 months, we've made great strides in improving that, and I think the Alliance programme has helped us with that. So that's what I would say, really.
Thanks, Julia. Right then, that's all from me for my questions. And I'd be glad to know, this is the last question from the people here. I know if any of my colleagues online want to follow up following this last question, and that's learning from them elsewhere. And back to Councillor Adam Davis again, please.
It's been really positive to hear you talk about the progress that's being made. And I know the issues in the report aren't necessarily unique to Swansea, but they are definitely very prevalent in Swansea. Are there any other areas around the country that you think we should be looking to as we formulate our response going forward? Any positive best practice, anything that we can draw on?
But yeah, so as part of the work we did when we were looking at reviewing our services, we looked at best practice in Wales, and we visited Gwent. They have a similar geographical demographic. They have a city, a prison, so we felt that they were doing quite well in the way they deliver services. It's basically an integrated model. So, what we're commissioning here isn't rocket science. It's a sensible approach. So we felt that, we heard from service users there, we heard from people working in the system, and, that is something we would like to adhere to. And, even internationally, there's so much best practice out there. I know Canada, Progressive, we've looked at the models there, and we've looked at I know Barrod, one of our services, has actually been out to Australia. I didn't manage to get on that plane, but they went to visit, what the things they're doing there. So we're always learning from different models. And the services we commission from our third sector, they have amazing links with alternative third sector organisations, in Northern Ireland, in Southern Ireland, there's best practice there. So yes, it is part of the work we do, and we do pull on all of that information to make sure we're doing the right thing.
It's gone very quiet.
Yeah. Sorry, I do apologise. Right, as I said, I'd like to thank people who've come along today, the officers from East Tower as well, and other colleagues. And Paul, oh, sorry, leader, do you want to come in?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's just I wanted to reinforce the points Martin made earlier, and also to add my thanks to the work that's been done. Obviously, I made the commitment on behalf of the local authority that we will play our full part in this, as Martin has said. But it is that strong collaborative working that is now in place with partners like the police, health and others, because we all want to make the strides that need to be made following this report to make sure that avoidable deaths are exactly that, and that we make sure we support people through their difficult periods, and we make sure that we do the best that we can. I'm encouraged by the amount of work that is being done across the multi-agency approach, and again, thank the Commission for the work that they did, for feeding back that lived experience and for helping us to look at what we can do to make sure our services are the best that they possibly can be for the people who need them. So, Chair, just adding my thanks really to the work that's been done and reiterating that commitment on behalf of the Council to support the work of the multi-agency partnership to do the best we can for the people who need us.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you. Yeah, as I say, as I was saying, yes, to thank you all again. Come along and all the work you've done. We will, as a committee now, we'll look at what we heard today and put a report together. We'll write to the cabinet member, but we will probably be inviting you back within 12 months to see how progress has moved on. And again, thank you much for all the work you put into it today, and for the wonderful presentation that you've given to us. So you're more than welcome to stay if you want to, but if you doesn't, you don't want to go toddle home. And thank you all again. Much appreciated. Bye now. Okay, thank you much indeed. Right, can we move on into agenda item 7, which is the follow-up scrutiny working group on the co-production. which is on pages 86 to 104. Can I also welcome our cabinet member, Councillor Hayley Gwilym and Lee Wenham, to go through this report with us and read the report and see obviously what already has been put together. Looks very, very impressive. But if you'd like to give us further details from our previous meeting from July on where you think we are at present and where we can move forward. Thank you. Adi, do you want to?
Yeah, just a couple of words, Chair. As you know, in 2023 we adopted the corporate co-production policy, and since then we've been we visited Scrutiny to discuss progress that had been made up to that date, and it was agreed that we would return. It is a great opportunity for members to hear and have the updated progress, and this report touches upon that, which I know Lee will go through. I think the previous item that we've just heard, and it was quite an exciting piece of co-production really with the Drugs Commission, and really evidences how important it is to bring that lived experience in when we are looking at shaping services. It was something I wrote down, include us when it's for us, and I know some of our aging members as well who are on COPA, Cymru Alliance for Older People, they always say nothing for us without us as well, and that's something that really sticks with me, and I think it should stick with us all really when we are looking at delivering services, you know, to meet the needs that meet the needs of our residents. So I'll hand you over to Lee then. Thanks.
Thank you. So just a quick update really in terms of the report. So in terms of where we've got to since 2023, I think there's been good progress. The report shows that there's collaboration, which is helping to shape services, improve our outcomes and encourage innovation. It's fair to say I think co-production is now one of our core principles. It's overseen by our Strategic Equality and Future Generations Board, and it's also now embedded in our statutory human rights and strategic equality plan, which means it's reported on annually. We've also got within the new IIA process, so the integrated impact assessment that accompanies things like service changes, new policy development. We have to demonstrate in that there has been meaningful engagement, which includes co-production. So again, that's kind of embedding it in our everyday work, kind of compelling officers to ensure they use co-production. The report before you has lots of examples. And just to pick out two, the kind of early years commissioning, that demonstrates how we've worked not just with multi-agencies, but consulted families and providers to ensure there's better outcomes for families and better choices. The second one around housing and homelessness, again, using user feedback, so the people who are using our services and lived experience, and that's helping to inform our service design. So just a couple of the examples are in the report. There are a lot more. In terms of actual progress, so how can you be reassured that things have changed since 2023? There's been a marked increase in the kind of breadth and depth in the use of co-production across the council. Co-production is now evident in service design, in our commissioning, our policy development and engagement. There's also new areas using co-production now. Early years team is an example of that. And there's greater use of feedback and regular engagement in our service design and our policies. So we're seeing that coming through. And we're increasingly seeing it now as business as usual in a lot of our areas. Having said that, there are still some challenges. Awareness and understanding of co-production is something that we continue with, and we need to do further work on that. There are some resource limitations in departments to provide the necessary time and impact they can put into co-production. And also, I think, adopting new working practices. You change the culture of a large organisation, and that takes time. So we've seen really good examples, but there are areas where it's taken a bit more time than others. To help with that, there's continued support coming through the council, so things like targeted training, sharing good practice so that others can see what is it that you're doing over there, what perhaps we can learn from over here. We're using our champions and peer support to encourage co-production for people to get involved, to give it a try. I think it's really important we have senior leadership endorsement, and just to reiterate what the cabinet member said, you could see through the Drugs Commission work and having the director here today, it's that kind of endorsement from senior leadership about co-production, which really helps embed it in the organisation. And we review things like the toolkits and training to make sure that they're a bit easier to understand and that they work for people who we want to use them. Again, to reassure members in terms of monitoring, because it's now embedded, and I mentioned earlier about it being part of our human rights and strategic equalities plan, and that it's reported to the board. That means that we have to provide an annual report. So we speak to service about getting annual returns from them about how they've used co-production. Part of that involves giving them an easier template, so they are finding it easier to give us these examples and demonstrate it. And the fact that then it's reported to the board, they monitor it and they will pick us up on areas where they feel we could be doing more, as well as highlighting good practice. So in conclusion, Chair, I think we've seen significant progress since 2003, but we acknowledge there's more work to do. But I think from the examples in the report, you can see that we are using collaboration and co-production to improve outcomes and to strengthen our inclusive working. So really good progress, more to do. Thank you.
It is a very interesting report to see all the areas that you've gone into and where we are sort of taking things forward. I know this was a scrutiny working group chaired by Councillor Lyndon Jones. Councillor Jones, did you want to add anything to that? Because you was chair of that scrutiny working group.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the working group in March 2023, and I was looking at the conclusions and the recommendations we made at that group, and we've come a long way. So big thanks to Hayley and Lee, for the work they've done in bringing that forward. What I would say is, what would they say would be their biggest achievement since then? A huge amount of work has gone in, and I appreciate that, and it's been fantastic to see.
We'll come back to that, Lee.
Thank you, Councillor, and going back to the panel, thank you for all the work you did, because it did help shape the policy and give us some direction. I think the fact that it's now being picked up across the council, I think that's the biggest achievement rather than a one-off. I think the fact that I mentioned about the breadth and depth, I think that's really important. And if we can continue that, then that's what I would think would be a great outcome. But yeah, people picking it up and going with it has been a real step forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some general questions which we might be appropriate is, first one's from me, the evidence of progress. Since the last follow-up in July, what are the most significant changes or improvements on how co-production has been used across the council?
I think just to summarise what I said earlier, Chair, I touched on a lot of those points around how it's now become embedded. And we always talk about we need to embed it in the organisation. I think we have actually seen that. The fact that it's part of our strategic plan, the fact that it's reported to the board as annual monitoring, it's in the IA process. All of these things together are helping to embed it in the organisation, as well as things like strong leadership and our Champions Network promoting it across the council. So I think that those are the kind of significant steps we've seen, is that we've actually grabbed it and run with it.
Excellent. Second question from Councillor Sue Jones, embedding co-production.
Thank you. Well, I think Lee has answered all the question I was going to put forward, because it was regarding embedded in the services, and he's answered that. The barriers that has come across, and he's answered that, so I haven't got a question for him. So thank you, Lee.
No problem, Councillor. I think it's fair to say, though, we're not resting on our laurels. We know there's more work to do. We need to further embed it. There are some areas we still need to work with. So yeah, and the barriers we're trying to overcome, but we know there's more work to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Petermay.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to welcome my favourite cabinet member, Councillor Hayley Gwilym, to the table. the where we're talking about embedding co-production, looking at the report now. There's an omission in there, if I may say so, which might be called the elephant in the room, and that's possibly the biggest consultation exercise that you should be undertaking, which is that of the budget. Now that is the, that overarches every element in that report. Now, this isn't sort of a laser beam focus avenue on a specific area. It covers everything. Now, I hope you'll agree, that the response to sort of budget consultations and that as a proportion of the populace of the city is quite woeful. You really don't get many back in. What are we doing to enhance uptake on that? And how are we giving the general public the perception and the reality that they're actually being listened to and their suggestions are being taken on board, in shaping the budget and our priorities? Because if I may say so, that's probably is the mother of all co-productions in this authority, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So the consultation is a challenge. I think it's fair to say when we do things like the budget, when we go out with our national resident survey, which we're part of, we tend to get between 1,000 and 1,400 responses. So when you think about the population as a whole, it's in line and probably slightly higher than other councils in Wales when you look at the national survey. So a couple of things we try to do. So it's, you asked, we asked, you said we did. So we try to use that. So we'll be doing that over the coming months as well. The National Resident Survey, which is in year 2, we'll be looking at those findings, see what that tells us, and to go back to the residents to say what we're going to do around their key priorities. The budget is slightly different. Each year we try slightly different approaches, and I think each year my appeal to members is the same, because we talk about hard to reach groups. You can define that in very different ways. I'd love to work with members, every member, to help me in the awards with their hard to reach groups. And that's my annual appeal, is work with us, help promote our consultations in your area. And I'm not talking to you as an individual councillor, I mean generally to every councillor. Help us, because you work with groups and communities in your wards, and you have key contacts and you have tentacles into the wards that we don't have as a large organisation. So I would love to work with members, and I'll kind of probably write out to members separately in a month or so's time, ahead of the budget, to say, okay, we'd love to get the engagement right. Please work with us. What's your ideas? How can we work with you to reach out into your wards?
Can I? Yeah, just to come in on that as well. I think we all want to make sure that surveys are not just done online, that we're reaching people who perhaps are not technology minded or savvy, or, the use of technology. And I know that we use the partnership and involvement team quite a lot as well to do surveys, or to base yourself in to do surveys where they base themselves in, because they have a lot of footfall and they have a lot of engagement with residents. And I know Rian has had stalls in the one-stop information shop, for example, and we'll talk to people as they come in past, but we can't force people to respond, which is is a difficult thing, isn't it? Yeah, so just to add that.
And I think it's a challenge for all councillors, Councillor May, and I think the opening of a Storva is going to provide another opportunity to work closely with the community, so people coming in to a hub. So we're going to look at how we can use that as an engagement platform as well.
Very, very interesting, the response. I mean, I see you put your emphasis on, focusing on groups and things like that. Sometimes groups, just because they've got a title doesn't mean to say that they should carry more weight. We're because I can sort of cite names of groups, which I won't, otherwise I'll get very hot water indeed. But where because they've got a name, everybody thinks that they're like you remember the Wizard of Oz, where you've got the little man behind the thing, and you've got the big booming skull on the So it's that's how it's an analogy to some groups. What I'm looking at is how can I've obviously got some ideas to share with you, which you well know, Lee, outside of the meeting. In fact, I might follow you out the door and show you, because I've got something there. And but how do you get not groups, but everyone? Yeah, you don't have to be part of a group to be important.
I'll come back to that. Sorry, Councillor. When I talked about hard to reach groups, I didn't mean kind of friends of this or friend or whatever. It's whether you kind of group people in terms of age, gender, where they live in. So based on that, so when I mean groups, I don't mean formal groups, but kind of informal groups, the networks. So I like you, I think we need to be going after individuals, but it's those people that we aren't reaching at the moment for whatever reason. And that's hard to gauge. Why? Because they're not responding and telling us. Then it's harder, but you as councillors probably understand your communities and the individuals in those communities better than I or my team will. So we're going to try and tap into your expertise and knowledge so that we can better target people in your communities.
Yeah, just to support the colleagues, Leah and Hayley. Obviously, Hayley talked about the partnership and engagement team that sits in my area, and we just talked about in terms of lived experience and community engagement when we talk about the other item. And actually, rather than us think about, oh, how do we get more people to answer our consultation, how do we think about what are already our natural connections in communities, whether they be through groups or individuals, that people are comfortable to come and tell us things, and then it's how we collect that and feed it in, rather than us keeping to why haven't you answered a budget survey, because it's not relevant to people at that point in time. However, it might become relevant, but it's actually how we gather that intelligence and feed that in, which is probably far richer than measuring a consultation survey of only whatever percentage that we get, because obviously the co-production is a ladder, isn't it? It's just around consultations is what do you think of this? Whereas actually engagement is when you start talking to people. When you get into the true co-production, you're sitting around a table like we talked about in terms of an alliance, and you're scoring a tender together as equal partners. So there's a big journey between it, and people. So from what I see is people kind of mix them up and it becomes interchangeable, whereas actually it's about understanding what are all the mechanisms out there for people, individuals, to have their voices heard, and how does that get into the place where it'll make the most difference for change. And I guess that's our aspiration collectively in terms of doing that, but notwithstanding, there is a massive challenge to do that, because you're not going to have one person going out and talking to every individual, but it's about how do we do that together, making use of all of our links. Lee's just talked about actually, well, members, they really, but there's lots of things out there that we can do. So I guess in terms of, that's when we talk about embedding it, and there's lots and lots of examples. When you embed it and you do things like that, that's when you see the real results. When you go out with a survey, that's when you don't. And I guess that's so from a service perspective of that's kind of where we probably have got our best opportunities for change.
It's a part of the discussion. I partially agree with what you've said on that. Going to it like established and well is an easier option, but sometimes you might want to adapt a hybrid approach where you actually go for people that you don't know anything about, because unless you are bold and chart that new territory, then you don't know what's actually hiding under the people who are silent are often the people who've got most to give.
It's from Councillor Victoria Holland regarding training and support. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. Has the training toolkit and Champions Network made a noticeable difference in staff confidence and the skills to use co-production? And are there any gaps?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, there has been a noticeable difference from those who've received the training, because their feedback is that they found the training useful. And I think the proof of the pudding is in the report that we've seen greater use of co-production. But what we're going to do as one of the next steps is to refresh the Champions Group, because they've been with us for about 3 years through the development and the implementation. So refresh the group, and also to revisit our training, because I think the way we did it 3 years ago, things have moved on. There's better technology now, there's better ways of doing it. So I think by refreshing the champions, improving our training, we'll get even better results. But absolutely, from the work done so far, you can see that people have engaged better, having had the training and been working with champions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and no, this is the last question from Councillor Adam Davis on monitoring reporting.
What ongoing arrangements are in place to monitor, review, and report on co-production and its on co-production activity and its impacts across the council?
Thank you, Councillor. So when I mentioned earlier about it being embedded corporately, so what we have is the Strategic Equalities and Future Generations Board, and through that our Human Rights and Strategic Equalities Plan is now part of that. So we statutory requirement to report annually, so it forms part of that, and then we work with the board throughout the year to discuss progress and to provide an annual report which is based on the information we get from services. So I mentioned earlier about we have feedback from services, provide them with a template, and we say, show us where you've kind of embedded it. The other thing we do is, which is really handy, is that Rian and her team in our equalities team, they see all the IIAs, so they review them, and if they feel that there isn't meaningful engagement demonstrated in the IIA, they'll go back to the department and say, thanks for this, but look, we think you should do a bit more work in this area. So that's a useful way as well. So that's a good way of seeing it day to day, but then also the reporting cycle really kind of brings focus to the annual kind of report.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Thanks again for coming along today and giving us further update report. We'll obviously look at what's been discussed today now, see whether they feel what's been in the report. We're happy to sort of say great, but we might call you back again. Okay, and thank you again for your attendance. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. And can I just thank everyone for their questions today as well, and for all the valuable input, but also the officers who've obviously brought that report and done a lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Stay or go, up to you. Okay, thank you. Move on to agenda under item 8, the scrutiny performance panel progress report. Councillor Lyndon Jones is obviously chair of this committee. Any further comments to add, Councillor Jones?
The only thing I'd say was to, excuse me, you can see the obviously the report. As you can see, we actually physically do school visits. It really is important for the panel to actually get in the schools and look at things that are happening on the chalk face, which I think is really important. We've done, as I say, a number of school visits. I would like to say that we see ourselves as the critical friend, really important, because like everyone, we want the very, very best for children in Swansea. And I would like to thank the panel for all their work and their experience that they bring to the panel during this period. Also the cabinet member who attends every meeting, as well as the officers for their input, which we find invaluable. And I'll take any questions anybody has.
Does any members have any questions? No? Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you.
Can we move on into agenda item 9, the membership of scrutiny panel and working groups? As you know, we set them up together. We still have some interest if people want to go on. We're waiting to perhaps get more involvement with our scrutiny inquiry on cost of living and community resilience and the taxi services. So I would encourage you to perhaps talk to your colleagues in the groups to see if we can get some more people to be interested, so we can set those scrutiny working groups up and running. But those are the main things regarding the memberships of the panels and the working groups, which is obviously contained on page 111. Item 10 is the scrutiny work programme. Within that, there's obviously the various information regarding on the forward plan and the our own work plan, and also the membership of panels that's already in place. Is there anything else? Anybody wants to raise anything from there? No? Okay, take that as okay then. Right, and as I say, the main items are for our next meeting, which will be on November 18th, will be the Scrutiny Performance Public Service Board, homelessness, and the Audit Wales on temporary accommodation, and the annual report on corporate and safeguarding for 24-25. And we, as I said, the last meeting, July the 3rd, the two members of the public have contact scrutiny by the website regarding essentially the complaints, which obviously requested the colony to the council complaints team and the relevant department. One was referred directly to cabinet members for them to directly provide a response to the members or the public, which is around environment and services within environment. And they've obviously been dealt with in-house. Okay, that's on agenda item 10. Number 11 is included in the report on page 147 is the scrutiny letters. And as I say, the time for the next meeting, the date and time for the next upcoming meeting, and for the scrutiny panel working meetings are set out in pages 152. And our next meeting will be on Tuesday, November the 18th at 4 p.m. We will be having a pre-meeting the day before to discuss the scrutiny of Swansea Public Services Board, homelessness, Audit Wales report on temporary accommodation, and the annual report on corporate safeguarding 24-25. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Can I now close the meeting? Thank you all for your attendance.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chairman. Bye.